Many years ago, we got the Kamen Rider movie known as Heisei Generations, a Kamen Rider crossover movie that switched up the typical crossover formula and brought together multiple Kamen Riders in one single movie, and it's what you could maybe call an Avengers version of Rider. The next year, we got a sequel in Heisei Generations Final, and after that, we got what many have called the Infinity War of Kamen Rider, Heisei Generations Forever. So now we've got a trilogy of Avengers Kamen Rider movies, and now we have to finish off this little series, and I think we got a somewhat worthy finisher in Kamen Rider Gio's summer movie, Heisei Generations Endgame, or Over Quartzer as most people call it. I finally saw the pseudo finale to Kamen Rider Gio, and as with most Kamen Rider movies, I really enjoyed it, but I think there are a few noticeable problems and such that I want to talk about in this video today. Obviously, this is going to contain major spoilers for Over Quartzer and the entirety of Gio, so you might want to watch those before you watch this. And if you're here still, then I assume you have seen both of those, so now let's get into it. So right away, I think that the whole plot of the movie with the Quartzers and Sogo being a fake king, I think that was really cool. I thought the whole thing was really interesting, and it kind of shed a light on some stuff in this series. Obviously, it did a great job of giving some actual character development to the already great character in Waz. You know that I love Waz, and this actually had some character development with him actually being a Quartzer, going against Sogo, kind of revealing he was against Sogo this entire show, basically. And then in the movie, Gates brings him back to the light, and I could actually really buy the friendship between Waz and Gates here. And I also thought it did some wonders for Sogo's character as well, when they basically told Sogo that his promise to kinghood was false. His whole idea of being a king, and Waz telling him he was a king, Waz even said himself that he was just lying to Sogo. And it was really cool to see Sogo basically get down on his luck, because he was like, well, I'm really not a king. And then he decides, no, I still want to be a king. And he basically takes that idea into his own hands. He doesn't go off of other people's notion that he will become a king. He once again takes matters into his own hands, and he himself chooses he wants to be a king. And we also get another moment like that where he's going against Omagio, sort of. It's like a weird vision thing. And Omagio basically says you can either become a king to become recognized or feared, something to that effect. I can't really remember, but basically Sogo says neither. And then he becomes a purified Omagio. I thought that was really cool as well. It basically kind of really tied together a lot of plot points with Sogo and wanting to be a king, and I thought it did a really good job of doing all of that. Now, this plan with the Quartzers I actually thought was kind of funny, but maybe in the wrong ways. It was a little bit of a fun fourth wall break, because the Quartzers want to recreate the Heisei era by, as Waz puts it, they created an anniversary rider and condensed the history so that they could all destroy it because it's bumpy? That's okay. So the subs I had, they said they want to destroy it because the Heisei era was bumpy, but I don't think there was any real kind of definitive reason for it. Like, they said it was messy, as in, I guess, the continuity, because we don't really know how the continuity works in the Heisei era, and that was kind of fun, another fourth wall break. But I think it would have been interesting as obviously the Quartzers have the designs of like not Heisei riders, so Black RX, Shin, J, Zio, and then the Amazons from the show. Obviously, these are like riders in the Heisei era, but they aren't like recognized as Heisei riders because they're either Showa or they're just like quote-unquote non-canon. So it would have been kind of interesting if these were characters that were kind of left over from those seasons or those worlds in a weird way, and that's why they want to recreate the Heisei era so that they are included in it. Something like that. I just wish there were maybe a bit of an explanation for that whole plan, but that's not really a big negative for me. I just thought it was kind of strange. What is a bit of a negative for me is the entire first half of the movie, because it's completely useless. The only purposes for it is to serve as the drive arc of the season, introduce the Quartzer riders, and then the idea of manufactured histories that kind of comes up later on. And even then, these little ideas have problems. Like, it's never exactly stated why Sogo needs another drive watch, although it's kind of implied that so he himself, Sogo, has gathered all the rider power since the original drive watch came from Gates, so that's fine. But then presumably the Quartzers were never trying to kill Clara Steinbelt and were trying to instead jumpstart Sogo acquiring the drive watch. We don't really know how the another rider situation is going on here, so I guess that kind of works. But then there's the weird scene in the beginning of the movie where Zamonas is trying to steal the cross, and like that doesn't do anything. I think that's a little weird. That also feels kind of useless. And also, while they're in the past, they meet Nobunaga, and he's not exactly the person that history has him out to be. The Demon King idea of Nobunaga is actually coming from Waz, calling Sogo the Demon King. So if anything, Sogo was more of a Demon King than Nobunaga, I guess. So then later in the movie, when they say that Balkrix is really Sogo and presumably Omagio, then Gates and Tsukiyomi kind of bring back that idea of manufactured history, and I thought that was really cool. But then it's clear that Balkrix never wanted to become Oma. He just wanted to wipe the Heisei. Would he become the Omagio we know after he wipes Heisei? But not really, because we get the moment with Sogo and Omagio calls Sogo his younger self, as he usually does. So this is clearly just really older Sogo, because I feel like at this point he would have... Sogo obviously knows that like he was not a real king. That whole situation is really confusing, honestly. And Balkrix is just a guy that's pretending to be Sogo, so that's also kind of weird. And then the stowaway from the Sengoku era as well, I don't even know his name. He doesn't do anything. He's not funny, he's not like comic relief, and he's just welcomed as a friend at the end at the table. But why? They haven't even known him for like a day. And like he's strapped onto Mock's back for like half the movie. Why? He can walk. I don't think they showed him like breaking his legs or something. I don't know, like that whole character, I hate that character. He had no need to be in this movie. So the entire just beginning section of the movie in the Sengoku era just overall doesn't really provide much value to me to take as big a chunk as it does. It takes up half of the hour runtime. So I think it could have maybe been condensed into like a 15-minute mini arc at most, so we can get Sogo acquiring the Drive Watch, and then we can get Go show up so he can be in the rest of the movie as well, because I thought that was cool. And then like that's it. You just really need the situation to give Sogo the Drive Watch and then introduce some Drive characters so you can have a Drive arc and then have them be in the movie. The way it was just overblown at this point was really, really bad. And it also would have maybe helped to have elaboration on later scenes, like where Sogo and Omagio are talking, or stuff with Waz and the Quartzers. I think a lot of the movie could have benefited from just kind of being expanded a bit when you take out that beginning section. And then the last negatives for me, I don't think I can really count these as negatives. Basically, the first one is timeline nonsense, where Krim and Go act like they are dying, but like they would have been wiped from the timeline per se. And then Gates' painting changing when that would have already happened due to how history and time works. But it actually kind of fits in with the rules of Geo, where like we look at how stuff happens as it's happening. If that makes sense, someone wipes out Sogo and we see Omagio disappear as opposed to that whole timeline changing. Kind of that idea. I guess they kind of stick to Geo's rules, so I can't really count that as a negative because I kind of expect Geo time travel to not really make too much sense at this point. The second negative is the timeline of the movie itself in relation to the Kamen Rider Geo season. There are no time trackers in this movie, but in theory they would still have to be in this movie because where would have Sogo gotten the ride watches? The ending of the movie though doesn't work with the rest of the show because there's no Oma form in the movie. He's basically already become a king, so like why does he need to fight Schwartz at that point, assuming the time trackers are still here? And then the whole Drive Watch acquiring thing seems to still be mentioned in the series, so like did they still get the Drive Watch? All that is like a lot of questions, but again, I'm not counting them exactly as negatives. They're still problems I have, but they're probably going to get explained in Reiwa the First Generations or the Gates Majesty movie, because those are more Geo stuff, those are more timeline whack stuff, and they're probably going to explain all this timeline stuff in those specials. So yeah, I'm not really going to complain about this too much, and I'm also filing the revivals at the end of the movie under this category because they also could be addressed later, and they also kind of recognize that they just break the fourth wall again, like, how are you back? I don't know how we're back, but we're back. So the last thing I'm going to talk about now is the biggest positives for me, basically my favorite parts in the movie. As always, it's the cameos and fan service. In my opinion, I don't think they're as impactful as they were in Heisei Generations Forever, because the soundtrack in that movie was amazing. But here, it's still really cool for the novelty of it, to see all the riders change into their final forms at the same time, doing rider kicks at the same time, and finishing off the main villain with the season logos, and then the 20 rider kicks logo appears as well. well, and then we get some obscure riders that actually appear as well. The guy Sogo's talking to in like the middle of the movie is named Kamen Rider, I think. I had to look it up. I didn't know who that was. Then we have the Go Riders show up. We have Kamen Rider Brain show up. Kamen Rider G shows up in official media for once because he's like another like non-canon question mark rider. Sangetsu Kachidoki, which was just in the stage show like just last year, so that's really cool. And Manga Kuga, which is weird, but I also really like that the appearance of these weird Heisei riders also ties into the theme that Waz is talking about at this moment, where he says the Heisei era is so diverse, like there's no reason to destroy it. And also Waz like iwaiing a bunch of different Kamen Riders is also something I never thought I need to see, but I did really like to see it. And then of course we get the standard pre-season cameo of the next Kamen Rider. In this case, obviously, it's Kamen Rider 01. This is definitely one of my favorite rider cameos because it's set up in the beginning as just a dream Sogo has, and it's kind of ominous the way 01 is in that as well. But then at the end, he kind of just shows up and it kicks the crap out of Zonjis, and that's really cool. But the soundtrack and the way it was set up in the beginning of the movie gave this really extra weight to the fight, as if Sogo created 01 just like how he created the Mii Riders by dreaming them up. So that was a really interesting idea as well, and I think that whole thing is really cool. Definitely one of my favorite preseason cameos. It was really badass. It was really cool to see 01 in action. That's basically all my thoughts on the movie. So even though I felt that there were a lot of problems with Over Quartzer, I still really enjoyed the film, and my positives certainly outweigh the negatives. So be sure to let me know any and all thoughts you might have on the Over Quartzer movie, and for more Kamen Rider content and reviews, please consider hitting that subscribe button, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you for watching.